That's cool. Okay, I'll do it. Yeah. That's cool. Okay. I will. Yeah. That's so cool. Yeah. That is very cool.
Good evening. I'll call our December 6, 2021 meeting to order. I want to thank everyone for being here tonight as we do the business of the county. Thank you for your investment into your community, and thank you for your investment into our county government. At this time, I'm going to ask Councilman Trey Whitehurst if he would please lead us in the invocation.
Everyone, please stand, bow your heads. Dear Lord, we just give you thanks for the opportunity to be here this time of season. And we just thank you for all the blessings you've given everyone here, everyone in this country, the opportunities you've made avail to us. We ask for your guidance today as we're doing the business of this county, to be with all the individuals on this council and all the people in the audience here, is to give us your wisdom that we may do what's best in your eyes and not in our own eyes. We ask your guidance in this. We ask your protection for all those people that are serving us in the armed forces and first responders, and just put a hedge of protection over them and their families. And especially this time of season, help us to be aware and mindful of the reason for the season. We ask all this in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. At this time, I'll ask Veteran Wallace Cecil Durham to please lead us in the pledge. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Durham, Wallace Cecil Durham, honorably served our country in the United States Marine Corps from June the 20th, 1966 until April 18th, 1969, earning the rank of corporal. Mr. Durham served in Vietnam from November of '66 until January of '68 and was awarded the National Defense Service Medal, Vietnamese Service Medal with 1 star, Vietnamese Campaign Medal, and Presidential Unit Citation. Mr. Durham also served 1 year in the National Guard Battery C Battalion in Clemson. Mr. Durham was born in Liberty and currently resides in Pickens with his wife Norma. They'll be celebrating their 52nd wedding anniversary in January. Veteran Wallace Cecil Durham served his country honorably, and today we show him our appreciation. Thank you for your service. Mr. Durham, I'd like to present you just with a small token of our appreciation, and thank you for being here with us tonight. Thank you. Our next item on tonight's agenda is public forum. We'll now hold our public forum. Note, this is an opportunity for the community to give us feedback on issues that you deem important. Madam Clerk, please call the first speaker.
Good afternoon, Chairman Bowers and serving councilmen. Thank you again for the opportunity to address the council as it concerns code violations, lack of code enforcement, and overall unsafe activities at 1781 6 Mile Highway, the property adjacent to Daniel High School. As I have previously requested, I am asking for the property codes to be enforced to the fullest extent. When I addressed the council in October, I noted no activity regarding citations since the July frenzy following my first public request in June. Several months ago, we heard that despite this being over a 4-year problem, the delay was due to COVID and lack of staffing. A couple of months ago, we were introduced at the council meeting to new employees that would fulfill the staffing requirement. However, despite filling these positions, I have seen no public record of citations, although it is clear code violations still exist. My purpose today is to acknowledge some of our community members and my neighbors. They've come to join us. Let's see, sorry, I lost my place. Each of these neighbors continue to follow up with me regularly, supporting the cause and waiting for resolution. I continue to relay positive outlook to my neighbors that the council, administrator, and attorney are addressing the concerns. But up until today, we see little visible progress. They have concerns and they are intimately aware of the issues at the residence. They would like to hear directly from you. Interestingly enough, as of this morning, the resident is removing the front fence. I'm unsure of why this has started today and would appreciate an update if you have the knowledge of what's going on. As always, I appreciate your time and service to our community.
Thank you.
The Baha'is of Pickens County would like to present Chairman Bowers and fellow county council members a framed artwork of the Golden Rule in honor of the 100th anniversary of the passing of Abdu'l-Baha in 1921. Abdu'l-Baha is the son of the founder of the Baha'i faith, Baha'u'llah. Baha'is all around the world commemorated his centenary passing this past November 27th. Because he is a very special figure in the Baha'i faith, our local community wanted to give you this and share just a little bit about him. In 1912, at the age of 68, he journeyed from Israel to visit the United States. He loved our country because of its uniqueness in composition and praised our diversity of cultures and peoples. Abdu'l-Baha traveled across the United States, visiting many cities, including New York, Chicago, and San Francisco. While in these cities, he spoke at churches, in homes, and at universities, sharing the teachings of Baha'u'llah to tens of thousands of people from many different backgrounds, both wealthy and poor, black and white. His talks and messages exemplified that there is one creator of humankind, that all religions are for one God, and that we should all live in unity. The first 2 sentences of his talk at the All Souls Unitarian Church in New York on July 14th, 1912, convey his message of love and unity. His words are still applicable to the current conditions of the world. Quote, "Today I wish to speak to you upon the subject of oneness of humanity, for in this great century, the most important accomplishment is the unity of mankind." Although in former centuries and times this subject received some measure and consideration, it has now become the paramount issue and question in the religious and political conditions of the world. End quote. We as a civilization must cure the prejudices that cause disunity. Our children deserve an inheritance, one of peace, of security, of love, and unity. Please accept our gifts of this framed Golden Rule artwork and this Oneness of Humanity multicolored penned ribbon. We hope they will offer a constant reminder as you serve our community, a message taught by all religions of the world, instructing us to show forth kindliness, compassion, and respect towards one another as we ourselves wish to be treated. And finally, in commemoration, and to share stories of Abdu'l-Baha's life of service, we will have a public showing of the recently released video called The Exemplar at the Easley Library this Sunday, December 12th at 2:30 in the afternoon. And we warmly invite you to come, and thank you for your service, and thank you for letting me give you this gift.
Thank you.
I got a letter from Santa Claus that I wanted to read to you guys. It says, "Dear Pickens County Council, I'm sorry, but I have some bad news for Trey, Roy, Chris, Inslee, and Henry. You 5 are quite firmly on my naughty list this year, and I've checked it twice, and yep, there is all your names. Alex, you have no worries. You are firmly on my nice list, and let's keep it that way next year, too. Now, guys, I know that all of you are really great guys and have the potential to do great things, but I've been getting a lot of reports of your naughty behavior, especially raising the taxes on people. Shameful. So I'm sending you the gift I always send the ones on my naughty list, a bag of coal. But guys, conservatives of the upstate tell me they actually think if you tried really hard, you could make it on my nice list for next year. They told me that if you would start being more transparent about your plans with them, and if you would pass the resolution they turned over to you to promise to protect their property rights, and if you would stop overtaxing them, and if you would promise you aren't conspiring to get revenge on them for speaking up about their concerns to you, that next year they are confident they would recommend to me that you be placed on the nice list, like Alex is this year. Remember, Santa's always watching and knows when you've been naughty or nice, or when you've been lying or being truthful, and when you are respectful to your citizens, or when you are disrespecting them. So try hard to be nicer this coming year, guys, so I can put you on my nice list. And Alex, congratulations for being on my nice list. Keep up the good work, being transparent with the people and trying to keep their taxes low and protecting their God-given rights. Love, Santa." Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Raines.
Chairman Bowers, Councilman, my name is Gene Rohera. I live at 112 Morgan Drive in Central. I wanted to bring to your attention a potential new type of crime that will probably be making its way to Pickens County in the coming months or years. You're probably familiar with identity theft and ransomware that affects counties all over the country, but are you familiar with home title theft? Criminals can forge your signature and file a quitclaim deed against your property. Once their name is on the property, they can borrow against it or even sell it without you even knowing it. Fortunately, in South Carolina, any sort of mortgage or financial transaction involving real property requires an attorney. An attorney's involvement will certainly help prevent fraud in the sale or a mortgage of a property, but it will not stop a criminal from filing a quitclaim deed against a property because there are no attorneys required in order to do that. In Pickens County, all a criminal will need to do is forge some signatures, obtain a notary stamp that you can buy off the internet, and file a quitclaim deed with the county. So, I'm asking the council to consider requiring the Register of Deeds office to do one simple thing to prevent this. If a quitclaim deed is filed against a property, a notification of filing letter should be sent to the existing property owner, which gives them 30 days to respond to this type of filing. If the property owner doesn't respond, or they agree to the filing, then only then can the filing be properly done. This simple step will save Pickens County residents a lot of time and money and aggravation. Not to mention it'll save our courts from having to deal with unnecessary lawsuits as property owners spend hours of court time suing to get the rightful titles to their properties back. Hopefully you will consider this proposition, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening. I am Meta Bowers, and I come before you tonight to speak in support of Pickens County Meals on Wheels. I became a volunteer and a program manager there at Meals on Wheels in 2008. At that time, I had the responsibility of managing our volunteers, also our clients, and our long-standing waiting list, which hovered around 150 people at that time. That's about the equivalent of 15 routes, and the average wait time to serve a person was 18 months. When we had a route opening, I quickly learned to check the obituaries before I called somebody to add them to the route. And that was because when I would call, I would learn that they had either passed away or they had been placed in a nursing home before we were able to serve them. What I learned at that time was when people apply to be on the Meals on Wheels program, they need the services now. They cannot afford to wait. When I became the executive director in 2011, my goal was to make Meals on Wheels a sustainable organization. We increased our fundraising efforts, we recruited countless volunteers, we built at least 5 new delivery routes, and we eliminated the waiting list for a minute. Even with all these efforts, it was difficult to keep up with the demand for services. And with the senior population expected to double by the year 2030, we started to plan, and we knew that it would take drastic measures. In 2015, we launched the Stepped Up to the Plate capital campaign for the purpose of creating the Kitchen and Senior Center in Pickens County. Pickens County Council was instrumental in helping us secure the old Liberty High School for this purpose. The McKissick Center for Senior Wellness was established in 2016. A project of this magnitude would not have been possible without a strong private-public partnership between Meals on Wheels, Pickens County Council, Appalachian Council of Governments, the Lieutenant Governor's Office on Aging, and the entire support of the Pickens County community. The bottom line is that no one plans to be homebound, and that the effects of aging, illness, isolation, and diminishing resources do not discriminate. Home-based services are the most cost-effective way to combat the 3 biggest challenges that face seniors: inadequate nutrition, isolation, and safety. For every dollar that is invested in the Meals on Wheels program, it saves the taxpayers $50 in Medicaid and Medicare spending. Pickens County has always been a strong partner and supporter of Meals on Wheels, and this continued partnership ensures that our community is a place where we can all live, work, raise our families, and age, knowing that we are a valuable part of the community for as long as we live. So thank you for your support and your continued support of the Meals on Wheels program and our seniors.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Kim Valentine, Executive Director of Pickens County Meals on Wheels. Thank you, Meta, for taking time to come and speak on some history of the organization. Thank you, Council, for allowing us to speak today. Since the opening of the McKissick Center, our senior programming and home-delivered meal program has grown leaps and bounds. Fortunately, our previous board members were able to foresee a great opportunity that has enabled our organization to offer more senior services than ever before. Renovating a building with a fully established kitchen has reduced the cost of each meal and enabled us to control the quality and nutritional aspect of each meal. Not only are we providing meals to our homebound friends, we're also serving 2 senior centers and hopefully a 3rd in the near future. Prior to COVID, I had never thought about how fortunate we are to have an in-house kitchen that would enable us to accommodate the number of meals that we needed to provide during the pandemic. Prior to COVID, we served approximately 200 meals each weekday. In addition, we provided approximately 50 seniors congregate dining at 2 of our Young at Heart senior centers. When COVID hit, we were able to transition our senior center members to either a home-delivered meal or a drive-through pickup at each senior center. With community, county, and business volunteers, we were able to eliminate the 150 home-delivered meal applicant wait list and started providing weekend frozen meals to all recipients. Pickens County Meals on Wheels started preparing, packaging, and delivering more meals than ever before. We went from 4,500 meals per month to 9,500 meals per month. I feel very confident in saying if we did not have our own facility with the kitchen, we would have not been able to provide that number of meals. As you know, we have submitted a grant request through the county's ARP money. This money would allow us to pay off debt and become a much more sustainable organization. The senior population for our area continues to grow, And by the year 2030, we are projected to have 3 times the number of seniors in our area. How will this grant money benefit us? With your grant support, we will be able to continue to expand our services throughout Pickens County without the burden of a debt. Pickens County Meals on Wheels is a vital senior program for our area. It's a hot meal, it's a friendly safety check from a caring, compassionate Meals on Wheels volunteer. I speak for all of our senior population when I ask you to help us continue to expand and provide seniors with an opportunity to remain in their own home, giving them the security,
Thank you, Ms.
comfort,
Valentin.
and dignity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Marcia Robertson, the Program Coordinator for Pickens County Meals on Wheels. In that role, I'm responsible for planning and coordinating activities for our 2 senior adult activity centers. Thank you, County Council, for this opportunity to speak with you this evening about something that is very dear to my heart. When we opened our 2 program centers, as Meta mentioned earlier, our dream was that these physical locations would become a special place for our seniors to gather. We wanted it to become their center, addressing their needs and their interests as they continue through their aging process. At each of our centers, every day, Monday through Friday, there is exercise available to our seniors led by certified instructors. We also have a treadmill and recumbent bike, giving them that opportunity to exercise in that method as well. There are activities, games, crafts, field trips, educational, health, and nutritional sessions led by leaders from the local community. Lunch around the table at noontime. All of this leads to their need for socialization. Meta made reference to isolation being one of the major concerns of our seniors. We want these seniors to be able to get out of their homes if they're able to and come and join us at these centers for socialization and the activities that I had mentioned. I want to talk a little bit about the makeup of our group. Currently, we have about 70 active members. They come for any or all of these activities that I mentioned. Prior to COVID, we were running about 100 members. We still have some who are a little concerned about getting out and being around others, but we're hoping to build that up as soon as we can. Our seniors come from all different backgrounds, representing the population of Pickens County. They are diverse in their economic level, their age, their race, their educational background, and their work background. One of our staff members made the comment one year that 25 years ago, these people at this center may not have associated with one another for whatever reason. But because of the common challenge of aging, they have come together as a unified group with that need for socialization, that need for an outlet, a place to come where they can exercise, eat a meal together, and have activities around the table. Someone to be friends with, someone to give and to get an encouraging word from, a way to support one another through the challenges of aging, sharing with one another with their daily concerns. This became very evident to us, the need for these activities, when we had to close our 2 centers because of COVID. We maintain contact with our senior members through phone cards and a few drive-by activities, but it wasn't anything like what they needed to be together. So we appreciate your support, and thank you for that.
Mr. Chairman, Councilman, I'm Nick Fletcher. I live at 302 Bella Vista Drive in Easley. I'm a volunteer driver, have been for the past 5.5 years for Meals on Wheels. And Ms. Valentin called me and wanted to know if I would appear before you tonight to kind of give you an eye-to-eye or a ground-level view of what exactly the Meals on Wheels accomplishes with our citizens in Pickens County. As you know, Pickens County is a pretty rural area. My primary route is called P1, which is Pickens 1, and it basically runs up Shady Grove Road all the way out almost to Holly Springs. Don't have many stops, but it's a long way. The folks in that area are generally low income, at least the ones that are getting Meals on Wheels. They're generally elderly. Some of them have no transportation or an inability to drive because of physical disabilities. And when you combine those two, those folks are pretty isolated. Most of them don't have family around to take care of them. And the meal that they get from us each day may be the only hot meal that they get for that whole day. I have been in the homes of some of those folks and found empty cans of meat products that they're just eating straight out of the can. In addition to the meals, what we do is we provide a safety check. Somebody looks them in the face every day to find out how they're doing, and if they have problems, we generally pass that up through Ms. Valentine and her folks there to handle. The safety check, we have found folks that have fallen, and we've had to call the sheriff sometime to come get them up. If we cannot get them to the door, get in to see them. We have referred them to other agencies for special help, such as transportation. And we've done that through Meadows organizations. The biggest thing that we provide, I think, and I've taken to heart because I am one of those elderly people, but by the grace of God, I'm not receiving Meals on Wheels. But we provide some socialization. We may be the only people that these folks see, sometimes for a week. And I can always tell when they want to talk, so I may have to put them toward the end of the route so I can spend the next 30 minutes talking to them and just trying to encourage them a little bit. But I thank you for the time, and I hope you will approve of Ms. Valentine's request. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, County Council, I'm here to thank you for your gumption and your smarts. Back in the 1950s, when I was growing up, South Carolina was known for two things. We had the very best roads and the worst education. States around us referred to us as the dumbest people riding on the best roads. Thanks to the Mensa group we sent to Columbia and their compatriots, they took away our great roads. Thank God for Mississippi, we're no longer the dumbest people around. They like to say they want to run government like a business. And smaller government, they're all for it. Every one of them is a liar because they've not done what they said they would do. Saw where Representative Hyatt was sponsoring a bill. I immediately grabbed Revelations to see if it was a sign of the apocalypse, him sponsoring a bill. But it's a shiny object because while he's sponsoring a meaningless bill, why isn't his committee investigating DHEC for approving an illegal permit in Pickens County that's costing Pickens County tens of thousands of dollars trying to repeal? So when he says he's all for the taxpayers, does he have an economic interest in solid waste? I don't know. I know he's got one in the local fish wraps. Frank Howard said it best. The only thing coming out of Columbia that's good is I-26. So please ask Mr. Hyatt why he isn't investigating the agency that he has oversight over. Because it's costing, you talk about money, that's costing us money. Now, why am I here to thank you? Because you approved a road tax. Your business is providing services for Pickens County. And to provide that asphalt, you have to have tax money. Spend it well. Because I know if you drive on 93 going on to 123 in Easley, you'll see that the state is definitely not doing their job. And right here is Miller's snake oil. And that's what the delegation is selling. I've had that for over 70 years. And it is a valid product. But it says it contains no snake oil. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Henderson.
I find it interesting at the council monthly meetings that the county administrator finds that it's worth mentioning the COVID cases and death report, which in each case, those numbers are less than credible. The cases are based on a test that has no validity. The deaths, we never know what was the root cause. Did they die of COVID? Did they die with COVID? The hospitals are paid a bounty to report it as a COVID. So those are questionable things. I don't know that it's of value to the council. Maybe it is. And going along with that, even on the agenda here, please note that in response to the increased cases of COVID-19 in Pickens County, council chambers will have limited seating. You know, perhaps we could do away with that. I think we're all well aware of what's going on. Cases aren't really happening. And now with the Omicron scariant out there, gathering all the news, I'm hoping that council will keep a steady head here and not overreact. We're seeing it all around the country. It's not a pandemic, it's a scandemic. It's been going on for almost 2 years now. Now, if there is data that needs to be reported, or should be reported, that I think is of value, it's the VAERS reporting, the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System. Now, that comes out every Friday. This last Friday, CDC included a total of 927,740 reports of adverse events for all age groups following COVID vaccines, including 19,532 deaths and 146,720 serious injuries between December 14, 2020 and November 26, 2021. I think that data is important. For the 5 to 11-year-old group, there were 2,586 adverse events, 2 reported deaths. For the 12 to 17-year-olds, there were 23,871 adverse events and 31 reported deaths. In the European Union, they show 31,014 dead, over 2.8 million adverse events through November 20th. Now, my hope is that people will understand that these injections are not providing the immunization that they claim to. People, do your research. I hope you don't overreact to the Omicron scariant and keep a steady head, and let's go through this for Pickens County. We don't need to repeat any of those methods that were tried over the last 18 months. Thank you.
I'm Alan Quinn from Easley. Now that the road tax in Pickens County has passed, it is obvious you are not going to recall the illegal reserve tax fund. So I would ask that you be completely transparent and honest about this new tax. When the state passed the gas tax bill in 2017, after 4 years of trying to get it passed, the only way they were able to get it passed is they agreed to show all income for roads and expenditures and fund balance. That is how we know they have over $1 billion, $1 billion in the gas tax trust fund that they admit they can't spend fast enough. It continues to grow. I've looked at your new website and I don't see these numbers. I agree with the Councilman Whitehurst that this must be done, along with line items on everybody's tax bill that shows how much they pay for road tax now, and road tax reserve fund also. I also feel strongly the balance of the reserve fund is going to grow very fast, and we'll end up with a high unused balance just like we had at the state level. The answer is not always large tax increases, but that you use the money already received from taxes to fix our terrible roads. The state gas tax trust fund was passed saying it was for state and county roads. Yet the state only gives all counties combined 3.5%, although they are sitting on over $1 billion they can't spend. You should have sent a resolution to the state requesting our fair share of these funds before even considering a reserve fund, which is clearly illegal anyway. I'm asking you to pass a resolution to the state requesting that, and that Chairman Chris Bowers tried to get all other counties to do the same thing. This is called being proactive. We are being double taxed to fix our roads, and you should try to fix that. Any tax increase always hurts those that are already struggling to make ends meet, but that obviously was not considered in this case. We're in a very hard time right now for those struggling because of high inflation, high gas prices brought on by our currently liberal, progressive administration in Washington. All of this is wrong. I hope you will be transparent in office about the county road taxes recently implemented. So I'm done for a while on road tax, and I will come back next month to talk to you about lack of economic development in Pickens County. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clay. Thank you. Item number 3 on tonight's agenda is approval of minutes. You have before you the November 1st, 2021 minutes and the November 15th, 2021 special called meeting. I ask for a motion approving these minutes.
I make motion we approve them.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Chairman Costner. Discussion on minutes. Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. Item 4 on tonight's agenda, the Administrator's Report. Mr. Roper.
Gentlemen, Mr. Chairman, members of council, thank you for the opportunity to update you on several issues facing Pickens County at this time. I know that we have a lengthy agenda, so I've shortened this report a little bit, but I certainly want to answer any questions that you
Do
might
you have
have.
a mic, Mr. Roper?
I think I've got it.
Okay. I just wasn't hearing you as well.
It's probably wishful thinking on your part, I'm not sure. But regardless, we will start with the COVID-19 update. As we know, we've lost many lives in Pickens County, including someone whose desk is not 50 feet from where we stand tonight to COVID-19 over the last year. So we're very mindful of that, particularly this holiday season for the people that are lost loved ones during this time to this pandemic. Right now, as of the day before yesterday, there are 315 active cases, which is up about 100 cases from the week prior. I'm sure that's attributed to cold weather and perhaps people getting together. So we'd ask people to please continue to take reasonable precautions that you feel comfortable with. Seek the medical advice you feel comfortable with. Certainly don't take my advice or any layman's advice when it comes to this, but rely instead on medical professionals. We do have our own vaccine clinic that will be running on tomorrow, December 7th, here at the County Administration Building from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. We'll also have that running Tuesday, December 21st. This will be for first, second, or booster shots of the Moderna vaccine. But please call ahead if you'd like to set up a specific time. The number is 898-5844 if you want to set up an appointment or if you have questions. I want to recognize 4 of our county future leaders. I say future leaders, which is kind of ridiculous because they give the taxpayers tangible value every day already in their young careers, and that's Jamie Reynolds with our Roads and Bridges crew, Trad Julian with Purchasing and Assessor's Office, Austin Dunn with our Information Systems, and Katie Corbin in the Assessor's Office. These 4 just completed the National Association of Counties Professional Development Academy, which is the format we use for an internal leadership program. You remember last year we graduated 4 from this program, and these 4 individuals just graduated a few weeks ago. So I just want to give them thanks. If you see Katie, Austin, Trad, or Jamie, please do thank them for their work for Pickens County, and thank them for their willingness to go through this fairly intensive program in addition to their regular work assignments to try to bring more value to the county. Very proud of these future leaders, future and current leaders. A couple of updates on rec funding. We don't have a good name for this playground, so we've been calling it LQK Playground, which, you know, if anyone wants to suggest a better name, we're open to it. It's being installed at the airport. You can just past where you see this view, you can watch airplanes take off and land in a safe location adjacent to the airport. This is going to be a handicap accessible airport. You see right there in the front, there's a swing that basically is suitable for wheelchair bound folks, for people with limited mobility, allows you to place them in it and enjoy the swing. We think it's the only one like this in our area, but it was purchased with rec funds from the Liberty Area District and is being installed now. Should conclude the installation this week. There will be a couple of things we've got to do with grading and with asphalt before we have a more formal opening in the coming days, but we're excited about that and wanted to thank you for providing those rec funding. Similarly, rec fundings from the Pickens Area District have gone towards improvement at Long Shoals. One of the things with Long Shoals, which if any member of the public hasn't been to Long Shoals, one of the most beautiful things you will see. Up on Highway 11, has been years, it has been managed by the Forestry Commission with very limited resources, and it was in a bad state of disrepair. Also had tremendous amount of trash that accumulated over years up there. We've had several cleanup events, and our building folks are using funds that are provided for from the rec funding account from the Pickens Area District to build new access ways, to replace the fencing, to replace the signage, to do things like that and make this safe. And we think a real jewel for the county up on Highway 11. So look for that work. It should conclude this week with the access portion, a good safe way to get down to the rocks. Although I would say when you get to the rocks, still watch your footing. It's wet rocks. So you have to keep that in mind as you're navigating. Long Shoals we're really excited about. One thing to just update you on, because it's not something you see every day, and that is the Public Service Commission has had contracted out something that was provided for in this year's budget, and that is the draining, cleaning, and repainting of the interior of a septic reception pond, for lack of a better way of putting it, tank, out on Clearwater Drive. You don't often get to see public employees standing in a septic tank like this, cleaning it by hand, getting it ready to be painted, and those are our guys down there doing that. So I wanted to point that out and thank them for their work. That facility is actually amazing if you ever get the opportunity to visit it, but they are cleaning it out in anticipation of painting it, and I'm preparing it for more extended use in the future. I wanted to update you on that. Look on social media for a little better version of that photo, because it is kind of amazing. FixingCountyRoads.com. We ask citizens to continue to report your road issues to FixingCountyRoads.com. You see all the little green dots on that county map over there. Those are road issues that have been resolved through this web portal since we launched it a little over a month ago. The yellows and the reds are still in process. The red would be one that was reported this morning, as a matter of fact. All the little blue lines represent the county roads. A lot of confusion out there about what are state highways and what are county roads. So one way to look on Fixing County Roads is one reason is to look and see if your road is a county maintained road. But please continue to use that portal to report issues. Please also continue to use that portal to check on what road projects are planned in the near future. And then to the left, you'll see this graph, this exciting graph. It's hard to see it, but this is going to be added to the website so people can track the collections and the expenditures from these two accounts. The road maintenance fund there on the left, you'll see what's budgeted to come in. You'll see the little green line right beside it. That's the amount that's actually come in through tax collections through the first few weeks after the tax bills came in. On the right, you will see the expenditures. We're budgeting to spend every bit of the road maintenance fund that's collected this tax year. On the next, to the right, you'll see the blue amount that we anticipate will come in to the road reserve fund, and you'll see the amount that's actually been collected. The road reserve fund, as many people have referenced, is set up and designed to be used for long-term projects, for emergency expenditures, for things that might not be able to be handled in one budget year. And so you'll be able to track our spending for that. You won't see anything budgeted for this spring from the road reserve fund, because one way we're going to use it this spring is to anticipate if there are any storms, we'll have an emergency fund available. Think about it like your savings account. But you can watch that over the next few months as we go and we begin to make plans and we begin to expend funds from that. That'll be up on the website here in the very next few days so people can follow along. Environmental enforcement update. There's also an online reporting tool. The same folks that brought you fixingcountyroads.com have also brought you a way to go onto the county website and report litter issues on your streets. So please do that as well. We don't have a snazzy name for that. We're working on that, but what you'll need to do now is to call our hotline at 898-5265 or go to the county website, look for community development and look for litter reporting tool, and you can report it. You can take a picture of the litter and send it in, and we will address the litter on the county road. So we want you to know that that's out there for you. One question that was asked during executive, or I should say during public forum, thank you for that, was regarding 6 Mile Highway. I can't provide an update to that, by the way, which is there was a court date on November 19th, just a couple of weeks back. That was from a citation that was issued, not as we've been issuing citations to the person who lives there, but actually a citation that was issued to the personal representative, to the executor of the estate. That person is Ms. Rhonda Clark. She's the PR of that estate, and she was issued a citation, had a court date on 11/19 for failure to keep that property in proper condition. She requested a jury trial on that charge, which I understand from the county attorney. The solicitor's office has agreed to take over the prosecution of those charges, which is very welcome news, as they'll bring professionals skilled in that venue, and that we anticipate that jury trial will happen in January. So we hope that will help and move the ball along. We appreciate all of your concern, and as I ride by there every Saturday morning, I watch the variety of conditions myself, and I'm as concerned as I'm sure you all are. So I wanted to thank you for that. With that, that will conclude my report. I would welcome any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Roper? Councilman Whitehurst.
To the 1781 6 Mile, how come we haven't issued any more citations?
So we've issued numerous citations against the owner. We could go out there and issue one every day, but there's a diminishing return to that. What we really need is the adjudication. We really need the court to speak and set that standard, and then it'll carry more force. Right now, they just kind of flaunt what we do. So we really need that court date.
I understand that, but it seems to me, and I'm not the lawyer, you are, but
Not
hearing,
really.
Hearing, I'm thinking you got one citation, it's a first offense, okay, to this person, okay, and they want a jury trial to go in there and go, what's the judge going to say? This is your first offense, okay? And it just seems to me this has just been ignored, not only by the person living in the house, but by the owner of the house. And I think, does it help to say, you know what, we've been out here and nothing has been done, and we've continued to issue citations? And I don't know. I can address that. There were, I know, more than 15 citations issued against the person who's living in the house. Okay? All of those, and you requested jury trials on all 15 of those. There's more than that. I know there's 15. And those we made a motion before the court, consolidated all those so they would be heard at the next available jury term, which is in January. In addition to that, once I researched, we found out that the actual ownership of the home is with the estate. It's not transferred out of probate yet. The probate court has given until February for the personal representative to sell that house as directed by the will. So we can't do anything in probate court until that doesn't happen. So additional citations have been issued to the personal representative, or which refers to as the executive, to the personal representative. Those are multiple citations, and she's also requested a jury trial. How many? There are additional. How many have we issued to the? I know that there were 2. I don't know that there were more than 2. More than 1.
So there's 17 total citations minimum.
At least. I just don't want this to get thrown out again, because, and once again, I'm not the expert here, but I have encouraged these guys to keep bringing this to our attention and keep coming to us and saying, and it just sparks me to talk to you guys and express, you know, this is right around the corner from where I live, and it's also right outside of Daniel High School.
Right.
And there's a lot of stuff going on there that is not conducive to our young people in Daniel High School.
Yeah, and Mr. Whitehurst, I would say you're right to be concerned. You're right to express your concern in this forum, just as they're right to bring it up here. We will continue enforcing this ordinance. We will continue issuing summonses. We will continue looking at alternatives that have never really been tried in this county, like going to the probate court and trying to speed along there. So I appreciate what you're saying and completely appreciate your frustration with it. These are constituents of yours that are back here. I know that's important that you provide them a voice, and so I welcome.
If it can happen here, if it can happen to them, it can happen to anybody.
That's right.
You know,
that's right.
And I guess if we're looking at, you know, there hadn't been a citation. When's the last time we issued a citation of any sort?
Of any sort.
To those individuals, either her or the landowner. I mean, the landowner or her.
It would have been less than 30 days ago.
So we've issued one in less than 30 days.
Less than 30 days. But what I would tell you, and I want to stress this point because I want to make sure I make this right, nothing will help our enforcement of county ordinances more than a successful trial date.
Okay.
Because then we can look at the guy in Dacusville or the person in Liberty and say, you know what, the last time this got in front of a magistrate, X, Y, and Z happened. That's the way you deter these things.
Okay.
And so I appreciate what you're saying.
Can I continue to ask some more
Councilman
questions? This quick claim deed, I think this has been brought up to us before. And I don't know that at the time we asked to look in, is there something we should be able to do to this? I mean, I can't imagine.
Mr. Chairman, but before, yeah, we did talk about this before, and the thought at that time, I think it was Councilman Hudson that had said he wanted us to purchase this software. But I really like what you had with the gentleman. I apologize, Gene had mentioned, and I was going to ask this same question. Is it possible to do what he's talking about as far as creating a policy where a letter is mailed and they have 30 days to respond?
Well, on the state level there's a statute that says that if the document is submitted to the registry of deeds office with deeds are recorded, whether they're quick claim deeds or warranty deeds or any other kind of deeds, that those deeds must be recorded. Okay? If you were to make a registry of deeds to do title searches or to ascertain whether or not those are valid deeds, it would basically flag the system down. We have a system in South Carolina which is called a race notice state. So if you file a deed, if you sign a deed, and you sign a deed to somebody else, the deed that gets recorded first is the presumed valid deed. Now that doesn't mean that you can't go to court and argue about that. That would be just judicial determination of who the actual owner is. So if you want to be fraudulent and sign a deed to property that's not yours, and say, I'm going to deed Councilman Costner's property to Councilman Bowers and sign a deed and then try and mortgage the property, that's fraudulent. You go to court, it'll be overturned, but you have to go to court to do that. But to put the burden on the Register of Deeds office would be difficult to do. And the way to do that would be to change the statute, the state statute on recording. So a county ordinance would not be appropriate to do that.
So this would,
I guess, and once again, once the legal things, I know I'm out of my realm, but just thinking logically, if I have to go to court and spend money to defend my property because somebody went there and put a fraudulent signature on it, and I might not even know it happened until is there no notification to the owner if there's a change in deed? And I don't even know what this quick deed thing is. Someone just comes in and fraudulent your signature and. It's just a type of deed. There's a warranty deed that you are signing, you're guaranteeing that the title is appropriate. A quick claim deed is I give you whatever interest I have. This is a type of deed. But you can always do that. There's nothing new about quick claim deeds. I mean, if you're fraudulent, you're fraudulent. But I think the point is that what he's saying is it can the not have to do a whole research on it, But when someone does a quick deed claim, you just send a letter out to verify a response on it. Because see, my understanding, I may be wrong, is that someone can come in, forge my signature, and claim my property or go borrow against it, and I didn't even know it happened.
Right, with 2 witnesses and a notary.
Right, and I had no idea that it happened. Is there a way that we can just inform, without having to go through a lot of research, if a quick deed comes up, we send a letter out that says, please verify? I mean, is that, am I going down the wrong road?
Well, recording of a deed is handled by statute. The state law says this is what you need to record a deed, okay? Once that deed gets recorded, then it goes to the assessor's office, which would be online, but there's no letter that is sent from...
So the quick deed's done through the state, not the county?
No, all deeds are done through the county.
Okay.
So, but the state says if this document is presented to the register of deeds in Greenville County, in Pickens County, in Adams County, whatever county it is, and it meets these certain requirements, 2 witnesses, a notary, and a signature, and a derivation and some other requirements that are on that deed, then the register of deeds must record it. They must record that. Now that doesn't mean that it's valid.
Does it say they have to record it that day?
Yes.
It says, I mean, because...
Yeah, you present it and it's recorded. That's
So you're telling me there's no way to prevent or have a double check on fraud going on?
No, you can change the law at the state level.
Is that the only place it can be done?
So the process is laid
You
out.
have to change the law, yes.
The process is laid out by statute.
It is, that's statutorily laid out. How to record it.
One other thing that I could tell you, if people are concerned about this, because, you know, obviously people are concerned, there's a whole new insurance industry out there about this sort of thing. But one simple thing you could do is go on the assessor's website. You know, just do that occasionally if you get worried about it. Go onto the assessor's website, go on the map, your piece of property, click on it, and it will show you the last deed that was recorded. So that's one way. If you get worried about it just in any given day, you can go and check and say, okay, my deed from 1956 is still the deed of record on this property.
Yeah, but that doesn't really, that's an arbitrary, happen to check a day. The next day he could fraudulent, and then I'm, you know.
No, I understand, but
I mean,
Vice Chairman,
but it is literally something you could do sitting right here, right now.
Vice Chairman Costner had a question.
Yeah, the question is, how many quick claim deeds on average do we have in a month?
Well, typically, a quick claim deed is done to correct an issue.
Okay.
Where a piece of property is deeded and maybe the property amount wasn't quite right, and so you go.
Very familiar with that.
Well, and you do a quick claim deed to correct that.
Okay.
I'm not saying I own this, but anything that I own, I give you. That's a quick claim deed.
How often does that happen?
Daily.
Every day.
Yeah, well, not on every property.
So
I
without
would think that there's a quick claim deed recorded every day.
without changing the statute, however, would it be possible to just send a letter to the registered owner?
that it has been changed.
You're not changing the statute. We're still going to claim, we're still going to go through the process, but instead, we're going to put in one little stopgap of, we're going to send a letter.
You're gonna have our county register of deeds, our registrar send a letter on each deed.
On each quick claim deed.
It would be possible to do.
That's why I was curious as to the number, how much work we loading up somebody with.
Well, and don't get hung up on quick claim deeds. I mean, if somebody's gonna be fraudulent, they're gonna be fraudulent for a general warranty deed, any type of deed. The quick claim deed is just a type of deed, that you're actually getting less with the quick claim deed than you do with the warranty deed.
Right, so maybe I misunderstood, because the way it was presented was, in the other cases, you get an attorney to help you do that, and the attorney is kind of the stopgap.
In a closing, under South Carolina law, an attorney is required to close a transaction if there is a loan involved. So the attorney is required in that transaction. So with the quick claim deed, you don't necessarily have to have an attorney. I think that was the point that was made. But you could go to the register of deeds office with a warranty deed, and it has the right parts to it. The registrar of deeds is going to record that deed right.
What is a warranty deed?
It's a general deed, it's a regular deed. The deed that you have.
So the compromise here would be, yes, they've got to record the deed because it's what the state law says. But the county could send a letter out notifying whoever we have listed as the property owner that, hey, there's been a deed filed on this property.
I can't imagine that there's a law that prevents us from doing that, but it would be a big task.
That it'd just be a form letter, right? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, you can do it. I mean, it's possible to do it.
It's gonna cost you postage, and I see Mr. Greeno wants to speak.
Well, you asked the number of deeds in our financial statements in the back. That's one of the things we do as statisticals, is we put in the number of things we've done, visitors at the library. In this case, we looked it up. It's in the financials that we're going to present tonight. It's about 20,000 deeds. It's recorded annually. Annually. Just to give
that's
you,
every deed, though.
That would be
You
all-
have to every deed.
just to give you a number.
Can we get a number for the breakout of the ones that are not lawyer involved?
I think.
I don't know. I'm not
I think
asking.
if you're gonna do, you're gonna have to do.
You're doing math. Okay,
I don't know
well,
what a stamp costs, but let's assume it costs 35 cents. I don't know what a stamp actually costs.
They cost about 60 cents.
Okay. I don't know the last time I physically mailed a letter. I will not lie about that. Any other questions for Mr. Roper?
I have some, I'm sorry, it's just a lot
Councilman
of
Waters.
stuff particularly.
I like it.
The road user fee, we have been talking for a while about creating that box.
Right.
Where are we on that?
Well, when we've looked at that before, and Mr. Whitehurst, I'll tell you quite frankly, there's been some confusion online, probably my fault, from the last time you asked this question, which I think was 2 months ago. You asked this question, and the confusion online that many people have now asked me about, some pseudonymously have asked me about, why doesn't the council trust you to spend this money on roads? And that's the way the question was
Okay,
interpreted.
yeah, that's not,
No.
we know that's not the question.
I know that, but they keep telling me I don't know what you meant, so I wanted to bring that up. I appreciate the
Please
opportunity.
clarify, that is not what I'm saying.
What you were saying is, in future years, with future councils, how can we prohibit them from spending this ever on anything else? And the answer to that question is, and I had the county attorney verify this, the county ordinance that you all passed specifies it has to be used for road fund. Okay, it has to be used for maintenance, upkeep of county roads. So a present administrator, a present council, a future administrator operating under that ordinance has no options. But in 50 years, if someone wanted to change that ordinance, a council just like you all, they can do it.
Well, don't we do a new ordinance every year with the budget?
Well, you do a new budget ordinance, but
Right.
But the road ordinance is going to control over that. It says road maintenance. So that's the layer of protection that you can get. And it's significant. A future council would have to sit here and take a vote in public forum to spend that road money some other way. Our roads better be in doggone good shape before they do that. And so I would say, to answer your question, the language of the ordinance is specific enough to provide the protection that you're able to provide under law.
Okay, I have one more, I'm sorry. I apologize.
go ahead.
Council.
No, you may ask the question I'm going to ask, sir.
You mentioned up there on that chart about the taxes that we had for roads and then the reserve fund.
Right.
And you said the reserve fund is set aside for larger projects and stuff like this and multi-year projects.
Right.
That's not how I understood. Explain how I saw it, that we needed to generate that extra money to try to get our roads down to a 25-year cycle instead of an 80-year cycle.
That's right.
Okay, and that fund is gonna be spent every year just to pave the roads to get us to that point. Okay, now I understand you're like, hey, we wanna make sure we have a little bit there, but I think we need to plan. There's no budget for it right now, okay? And I that's not how I saw it as a reserve fund. We used it as a way to be able to get the money, but we need to spend that reserve fund every year just to get us to a 25-year cycle in my brain.
So what we've got to do is we've got to make sure, and we're fortunate in this case, that not only do we have the language in the ordinance that creates two funds, the ordinance itself creates a road maintenance fund for regular maintenance and a road reserve fund for something other than regular maintenance. It's in there. Now, year to year, just to step back, what that would mean is when the road user fee money was collected, one thing we knew is we couldn't spend it all. Because what culvert's gonna wash out? What bridge is gonna need to be repaired? What road is gonna completely fail? So we knew that we had to hold some money back. The reserve account gives us flexibility now with that. The other thing is we couldn't pledge. You remember there was a proposal a couple years back. Let's pledge a portion of our $20 road user fee towards fixing 183. Remember that proposal? We couldn't do it because we would be cutting our own throats for regular road maintenance. We couldn't do that.
No.
So the road reserve fund would allow us to identify long-term projects that might span over a couple of years. And I'll give you one specific example that we're studying right now. What about a road that's completely failed, where maintenance won't fix it?
Well, it's still a maintenance project.
Well, we still need to do a total reclamation.
Right, but it's still maintenance.
Mr. Whitehurst. So what I would tell you is, what you'll see is us spending and maintaining, which is what state law says. So we will collect, we will spend, and then we will maintain that fund year after year after year. And what's got to happen is, and this is on me and my staff, is to show y'all over the course of this first year how we're going to spend this money. If we get it wrong, you know, we'll have to be accountable for that. But we are spending this money on road maintenance and road repair and road projects only.
In my mind, it's all road maintenance, because we've got the roads.
At face value, you're absolutely right, but when you break down the semantics of the verbiage, what Mr. Roper I think is trying to say is you can't pave, and this is my interpretation, correct me if I'm wrong, you can't say we're going to put it all towards paving, because currently, if the culvert fails, well, that's paving money that we now have to move over to do the culvert, where the reserve fund, that culvert failed. That was not a planned event, that was not a whatever. That can come out of the reserve fund, and we still are putting asphalt on the ground in other areas.
Well, I don't think the maintenance fund is for, quote, only paving. It's for maintenance.
For the whole road system.
For the whole 9 yards. I guess, here's my point. I don't want us to be in the same boat as the state is, sitting on billions of dollars, when we went out there and put our necks out and said, I'm gonna pay the price from Jonelle to do this, because we need to have our roads done right. And I don't want to have that holding over my head or anyone else here that money's sitting in there and it's not being dedicated to roads. And that's my only point, is if it's going to come up, it's got to come down. This is designed to get the county roads down to a 25-year cycle on paving.
So I think you're exactly right. I want to say 2 points, though, to make sure it's preserved forever, okay? Because it's important what you had just said. We need to make sure that we are doing all the maintenance that needs to be done to keep our roads that are in good shape.
Right.
And we need to be looking at long term. Do we need to focus on, you know, one specific type of road that we spend the money on year over year over year? Do we need to look at some specific area of the county that's got more issues with its roads than others? And that needs to happen year over year over year. So the important thing there is maintenance and long-term plans have to marry together to keep us on that paving cycle you're talking about.
Okay.
Vice Chairman Custer.
So I guess it's when you say long-term, it sounds like we're just going to save this money up for a while. And that's, I wanted to make this point. If I'm hearing you correctly, we're going to keep the roads we've got looking good, but we are going to, it's semantics in the sense of, we've got to fix this road here, we've got to fix this road here, it needs a culvert over here, this bridge needs that. All of this is going to take place. My question is, are you going to be able to spend all the money in that reserve account, or is it going to build up over time?
Absolutely. We've got more than enough projects to go around. We'll spend every dime.
And that's what I need to know.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Saylor.
That is not the way I see it. I mean, the county majority passed the tax increase of 9.6 mils for maintenance road repaving. That's in the ordinance. The cap of 5.3 mils, and then above that was above the cap of 4.7 mils. The Attorney General wrote an opinion on our tax increase. It's 4 pages. What he basically said was, only up to the 5.3 mils could you do maintenance repaving on roads. The other 4.7 above that, you cannot do what you plan to do. What they're saying is, okay, we're going to take lemons and we're going to make lemonade. we'll do long-term projects that go over many years. That money above the cap of $4.7 million, I'm going to read from his opinion. We do not believe Pickens County may use this exception to exceed the millage cap limitation to fund ongoing road operating expenses. So the amount above the cap, which everybody thought could be used for day-to-day operations and maintenance and repaving roads, you cannot use for that.
What do they say we could use it for?
What he says you can use it for is like what Ken said at the beginning, which is emergencies and long-term projects. So for example, if you want to build a road that's $12 million and you can't fund it in 1 year, each year you put that money into that reserve, and then after 3 years you build that road.
So, Mr. Sato, pretty much you're agreeing with what Mr. Roper said. You got a road you can't maintain because it's at failure level. You're saying the reserve fund is actually what would meet the Attorney General's approval for, which is the exact thought that I had when I voted.
But if you read the ordinance, that's not what you voted on. Because right now, when you take the amount of roads we have times the amount of money to repave those roads, which is about $200 million, and divide it by 25 years, a 25-year cycle, you need about $7 million. You only have $3.2 million of this money you can use for road repaving. That's it. It's been cut in half. You can do long-term projects, but I'm telling you, we don't have a long-term project problem. We don't want to build new roads.
No, but you got to repair roads that are beyond repair.
And some of those, yeah, will qualify for that. But the idea that we have $6 million for maintenance road repaving is not true. It's been cut in half by that AG opinion. You can go spend it on that, but you run the risk of being sued by the state.
Again, it was never my thought or intent to do what you're saying. My thought and intent was exactly what Mr. Roper explained.
But the ordinance says what I'm saying. I don't know what you thought, but the ordinance says it's for, right? Didn't you just say that what? For maintenance.
It creates two accounts. One is a reserve fund, the other one is a regular operating fund.
And it was for road maintenance. Long-term plans is not road maintenance.
Well,
actually,
I would tell you that without a long-term plan, you're not going to do
Okay,
good.
like I said, given the Attorney General's opinion, what you're doing is saying, okay, we can't use it for road maintenance. We'll use it for something else. We'll create a list of long-term projects. But I can tell you, this council was never thinking about long-term projects. We were thinking about crumbling roads that we wanted to put this entire $6 million towards to repave. Now, half of that money can't be used for that.
It can and it will.
How?
Come July 1, watch us. What I would say there is watch us. Because what we've got is we've got long-term projects, Mr. Sato, respectfully, because I understand that you feel strongly about this. Long-term projects, long-delayed projects, long-term projects that need to be done and needed to have been done for decades. Those are the things we're going to be working on.
Okay, let me ask you a question. Rhymes Lane, its paving condition is 42. The road is in is in poor shape. It just needs has some cracks and whatever. Can you use the long-term reserve money to repave that?
I would have to get an engineer to look at that.
No, the answer is no.
No, the answer might be yes. It might be yes. I would have to have an engineer look at that road, and that's what we're doing right now.
It's just a maintenance problem. You can't spend that reserve money on day-to-day, like it says in the opinion, you can't spend that reserve money on operations.
So there's some houses, let me use this as an analogy, because I hope this is helpful in the way that I'm thinking about it. And if I'm not thinking about it the right way, you gentlemen are in the perfect position to correct me. Some houses you would look at and you would say, that house needs some maintenance. And then some houses you're going to look at and you say, that's a tear down. We've got roads that are tear downs, gentlemen. And we're going to have to be able to address those. And
I agree.
I believe that's a multi-year problem that needs a reserve fund to address.
We also have problems in Clemson and in Easley. We need bypasses, and the state is just sitting there doing nothing about it. It'll take them between about 20 years, maybe even more than that, to finally get around looking at that. And we may have to do that on our own.
Other questions for Mr. Roper?
May I make a...
Councilman Whitehurst.
I think what you've come up with is a systematic way to get around what we've been told from the state. I think our intent all along, the way the ordinance is written and what was presented to us, was a way to be able to get that funding, that extra funding, to get us down to 25 years life. If you do that, however you do it, I don't care, okay? That's what I want to make sure, is if there's a little semantic game that has to get played to make something be a capital project to this, but this money has to be done the people are paying that tax. I'm getting the phone calls, I'm paying that tax, we got to do what we say we're going to do with it. And that's all I ask, is that you make that happen, and I'm good.
Completely agree, and thank you. I would say that it's not semantics to me, however, I would make that point that this is a real practical reality, the difference between roads we need to maintain and the difference that we need that we're going to have to tap savings to fix if we're going to fix them right. But I appreciate your comment.
Any other questions for Mr. Roper? Hearing none, thank you, Mr. Roper. Item 5 on tonight's agenda is the committee report. The Committee of the Whole met November 15th. Log number 188 was Clemson Paul Partners in County Vet. There was no action taken by the committee. Log number 167, the 2021 accommodation tax funding request for Mile Creek Park. Councilman Whitehurst made a motion to move forward with fire rings using Jamestown Advance and for county staff to refurbish picnic tables. Motion was seconded by Councilman Wilson and carried unanimously 6-0. It does not require a second as it comes from committee. Do I hear any discussion?
Motion. Oh, no.
Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you, gentlemen. Log number 190 was the fire fee revenue. No action was taken by the committee. Log number 177 was American Rescue Act funding. Vice Chairman Costner made a motion to use the lost revenue to purchase a baler for $750,000. Motion was seconded by Councilman Seda and carried unanimously 6-0. Councilman Seda made a motion to amend to add a refund of $75,000 for the Cleanup Pickens program. Motion was seconded by Councilman Costner and carried unanimously 6-0. Let's see. Hearing as it comes from committee, it does not require a second. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by raising your hand. Thank you, gentlemen. Councilman Wilson made a motion for staff to create a process for not-for-profits to apply for the ARPA funding based on the principles set forth. Motion was seconded by myself. Motion carried 4-2 with Councilman Seda and Whitehurst opposed. Does not require a second as it comes from the committee. Any discussion on that?
This is for creating the plan for people to present stuff for funding.
Correct.
My only concern here, Mr. Chairman, was, and I said it in the committee here, and I want everybody to know that, I think the process is needed, but we need to make sure that we have so many multi-million-dollar projects like a radio system, a dispatch system, sewer district. Those need to be paid for first with the cost overruns, which we're going to get. And once they're paid for, which is our primary responsibilities, roads, sewer, things like that, then we could consider those outside groups. So I felt it was too early or premature to have that process now. So I voted no, and I'll be voting no again.
I'm of the same agreement on that, and that's just where we are. We got to take care of what we have first, and then we have what was left.
Yeah, the money will go very quickly.
Understood. Any other discussion? Hearing none, those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Opposed? Thank you, gentlemen. Log number 183, annual update to capital improvement plan. No action taken by the committee. Shooting range ordinance. Councilman Wilson made a motion to table the shooting range ordinance to the next committee of the whole meeting. Motion was seconded by myself and it carried 6-0. I don't think we need to vote on that. Log number 181, first reading and title only of ordinance for a referendum regarding Sunday alcohol sales in Pickens County. No action was taken by the committee, and that is the end of the committee report. Item 6 on tonight's agenda is council correspondence. Want to make note, non-essential county offices will be closed on Friday, December 24th, and Monday, December 27th, in observance of the Christmas holidays. Offices will also be closed on Friday, December 31st, in observance of the New Year holiday. The next council meeting will be on Monday, January 3rd, 2022 at 6:30 here in council chambers in the admin building. Are there any other correspondence that need to be announced?
Mr. Chair.
Vice Chairman.
I attended the SCAC legislative conference this past week, and I wanted to report that due to the excellent year of revenues and in light of SCAC's strong financial position, our budget committee recommended the SCA South Carolina Association of County Board of Directors amend the 21 budget to provide a COVID-19 disbursement to all member counties in the amount of each county's 2021 service fee and building assessment fee across the state. That was $687,000. That means that Pickens County will be getting that money back.
Thank you. Any other correspondence? Hearing none, item 7 on tonight's agenda is motion period new business. Does a member have any motions at this time? Hearing none, item 8 on tonight's agenda is presentation of the fiscal year 2021 audit by Mr. Alan Robinson of Sherrill Becker LLP.
Jerry Becker. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry. I apologize.
No, that's great. It's a mouthful.
Becker.
Good evening, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, Alan Robinson with Cherry Becker, CPA firm, here to report on the financial report for the fiscal year ended June 30, 2021. And here on behalf of my team from Cherry Becker with Ron Conrad, the reviewing partner, and Lacey Grimm, who was the team and project leader. There is no drama, there's no shoe to drop here. It's an unmodified audit opinion is what we call it. That means it's unmodified in that there were no exceptions or findings in it. You'll see that on page 7 of the document that you got via email, I think, last week, as well as a physical document that was handed out tonight. Our audit report is dated November the 19th. We finished this up back before Thanksgiving and are just now presenting it here tonight. Just some highlights really from the table of contents. There's some excellent management discussion and analysis that starts on page 9 that gives you year-over-year comparisons and insights into the movements of the funds within the financial statements. The financial statements themselves start on page 18, and it goes on for 155 pages. It's almost a reference document here for you to look up. I did get some advanced questions from Mr. Saida. I did want to run down those. There's information about the library, and its statistics are on page 132, with some of the financial information on page 95. There's information about assessed values on page 120, and some footnote discussion of it on page 43. And an extensive footnote discussion of the pension liabilities of the county is on page 51. But it struck me that many of the things that you were asking about are cited with statistics in here in the statistical section. So there's a tremendous amount of information. I encourage you to look through it. And Mr. Garino and I would be glad to answer any detailed questions that you might have. I'd like to give a couple of insights. The audit went on time and on schedule. That's important. We had no adjusting journal entries. That's when we find an error and have to adjust the books, and had none of those. So that's really all of my prepared comments. Would be glad to answer any questions or perhaps any comments.
Any questions?
I have a comment. You've been doing this for us for many years, and you do an outstanding job. We appreciate it, and every time you've come, it's been unmodified, which is a note to Ralph and his team, keeping our books in order. Good or bad as they are, they're in order. and your team and the thoroughness that you go through, and I appreciate it. It gives me confidence to know you guys and what Ralph does. So thank you, and thank you, Ralph.
I have a couple questions. The value of a mill, how much did it rise?
The value of a mill.
Or the assessed value that's on?
I'm sorry, I'd have to get my pocket calculator out. Page 120. Yeah.
So it looks like it rose about 7%. Okay, so basically, when we assess 53 mills or whatever the mill is 63 mills, the revenue that's bringing in is rising 7% a year. Is that fair to say? It's rising 7% a year.
For that year, yes.
Okay. The final library numbers, like I said, we debated these all year. These are the numbers that are finally, and you said they were what page were they on?
The library statistics are at the bottom of the table on page 132, and the financial information is on page 95.
Okay, I would just make a point, because I know I said a lot of things about estimates during the year, but library revenue was 3.9 million. Their expenditures were 3.5 million. They saved 400,000, and their amount of money in the bank was 3.3 million at the end of the fiscal year. I just looking here, it looks like we spent 5.9 million on roads.
Don't have the exact number. You may have it in front
Says
of
on
you,
page
but
102.
it was in that range, yes.
Yeah. How many miles of roads did we pave with that?
I actually have that. The amount we spent last year, which you have to keep in mind, was 3 years accumulated road user fee money.
Yeah.
So that was 3 years accumulated in the bank and without spending it. And then last year, this council said, spend that money, put it on the roads, and we did exactly that. So it's
5.9?
32 miles of road.
Okay. And then one thing you said, the pensions. The pension liability I see here on page 46, it went up by 12%. Now, why is the pension liability rising 12% a year?
The pension liability is Pickens County proportionate share of the South Carolina retirement system. And it's going to go based upon a number of factors: actuarial results, investment returns, and contributions offset by withdrawals. But it is Pickens County proportional share of the state retirement. So we really don't have anything close to direct control over that number.
So the answer to that is it went up because statutorily it went up.
Because the South Carolina pension
performed so poorly.
Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't say that.
But there's but they required it is the reason. It's not an option if we stay in the system.
No, I'm just saying that you can't function with your pension liabilities rising 12% a year in the state. Eventually, because right now we pay, how much do we pay? Employer pays what percentage? Do you know, Ralph?
Approximately 18% on the employer side.
Okay, so the employer pays 18% and the employee pays what?
Approximately 9.5%.
Okay, so that's 27% of wages go to the pension, and they still can't make the numbers
And
work.
this liability reflects the unfunded portion,
Yeah.
of course.
Yeah, which is how many
We've been
billions is it unfunded?
3-year.
I guess my whole point in the long run, the pension system is not viable.
Well,
you
they
just
grade
can't-
them state by state. South Carolina is about 25th. It'll move up a couple every year, but we're right in the middle of the pack. Some states.
But they're all pretty bad.
There's states that are fully funded by law. And
What's that?
There's states that are fully funded by law, and there's states that are badly underwater.
Yeah.
Wow.
What is our pension liability, you know?
For the state of South Carolina?
Yeah.
Oh, it's $40 billion.
I was going to say 30-40 billion.
So basically, the amount of money that's coming in versus what they're going to owe is in deficit by 40 billion. In the long run. Right?
There's 40 billion in assets, 20 billion in, I'm sorry, 40 billion in, you got me. There's 40 billion in liabilities and about 20 billion in assets. I'm speaking in very round dollars. I may need to get back to you on that.
Okay,
But we're funded about 50 cents on the dollar.
And I may be wrong.
That's my whole point.
Yep,
I mean,
we agree. Yes, sir.
I may be wrong on this, but didn't the state legislature do something with the pensions just last year that
about 3 years ago.
3 years
they
ago?
They raised the pension numbers to what he said, 17%, 9%, and they're still not covering.
And we've been on a 3-year program of raising it every year, right? Are we on the 3rd year of that now?
Well, we have, because of COVID, they stopped it for 1 year, but we've got to catch up on that 1 year, which is, I believe, the year that we're currently in. This will be the final year to catch up.
And this is by statute, we have to do this.
Pardon me?
We are being told we have to do this.
To be a part of the retirement system, they give us
Right.
the rates, and yes, we have to contribute that amount. It's factored in the budget.
Yeah, I'm
Any other questions? Great points, Mr. Savvy. Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much. Thanks to Ralph and Jody and their team and their staff.
Mr. Greeno, item 9. You're
I've
item
got the
9.
next
So we'll
item.
roll into mid-year budget update by Mr. Greeno.
Well, thank you, Council, for letting me be before you tonight. I think we're going to show up on the screen in just a few moments. You should have this report in front of you. I laid it on your desk earlier today. This is actually on our website, so if anybody would like to look at the same thing that I'm going to be talking about or that Council's looking at, you're more than welcome to go to our website. It's under the Finance section, and it's called Monthly Financial Report. So there's a lot of columns here. This is for the general fund. I won't go through each column, but just highlight the part that's in yellow so we can focus in on that. This is our monthly financial statement that I do every month, and this is through October 31st. I'll have November's out there probably mid-December, a little bit later. We close out the books on December 15th once we get all the expenses in and the revenues in. So I thought I'd go through on the revenues, kind of highlight a couple things on it. If you notice, the first line is taxes. That makes up about 68% of the revenues of the general fund. And what makes up the taxes consists of real property, which is mainly your homes and buildings. It makes up personal property, which is vehicles and motorcraft and RVs, items like that. And then it's the local option sales tax, which is the additional 1% that people pay in Pickens County on top of the 6% that the state assesses. So those three items primarily make up the tax section that you see before you. Currently, we've only collected 1 month of property taxes because the bills went out the first month of the first part of the month of October. So we don't have a lot of information on that, but as of right now, from what I'm seeing compared to last year, I don't see anything that's going to stand out that I'm concerned about. I think we're going to make budget at this point, but obviously our times that the majority that comes, the time that the majority of the revenue comes in will be in November, December, and January. So I'll come back in a couple months and give you an update once we have those revenue numbers in. License and permits is primarily made up of residential and commercial building permits. Not seeing anything out there. In fact, we're probably ahead where we were last year. And if you go over to the column a little bit to go into my right, you'll see a comparison of where we were for FY 2021 at this point in time. Next section is intergovernmental revenue, which is made up of any federal money that we receive, any state money that we receive, or any local money that we receive. The primary revenue that makes up that $6.4 million is our local government fund. Some call it the state aid to subdivisions. And I think that's approximately $5 million of that portion. That is based off, when we put the budget together, that is based off a formula that's given to us by the state. So we're have a pretty good estimate of what that number is going to be. Generally, it doesn't change, and it's based off the previous year's state revenue, and then we get an allocation of that. Charges for services is made up of primarily of Register of Deeds, EMS fees, and Mile Creek Park. We talked during the budget time about Register of Deeds fees, how they were so much higher than we expected for 2021. We thought we'd see somewhat of a slowdown, and we have somewhat. But the positive news is that it didn't slow down as much as we thought it would. So right now, we got good news that our revenues are getting close to what we budgeted for at this point in time. So I foresee that we'll have additional revenue and charges for services for FY22. Fines and forfeitures, that's clerk of court fees and magistrate fees. And then we have investment income. That's money that we have cash on hand that the treasurer invests in CDs and T-bills throughout the year. We book that as that revenue comes in, and then at the end of the year, whatever we're owed, whether we've received it or not, then we'll book that amount. So right now, we haven't received any interest, but that comes in periodically as the CDs mature. Then we have some other rental income, which is very little, in contributions sometimes that we estimate we may get in. Miscellaneous makes up anything else that wasn't budgeted in the previous categories above. So overall, what I'm seeing through 4 months, I see on the revenue side, we're doing what we anticipated. Along with the charges for services, I see that we're going to come in higher than what we anticipated. And that's one of the benefits of being conservative in our budget, either through expenditures or through revenues. Things are better than what we anticipated. We have that additional funds on hand, either to put in fund balance or for possible unexpected expenditures, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. So on the revenue side, we're doing good. I don't have any reserve at this point about us not being able to make our $48 million budget. Down below is the expenses, and wanted to kind of highlight that. Not necessarily go through each category, but just as a general overview, wanted to point out a couple things. Personnel services makes up 73% of our budget. So of that $48 million, if you go down a little bit farther, $35 million of that is personnel services. And that's made up of our salaries, that's made up of benefits, which consist of the retirement system, as we talked just a few minutes ago. It's made up of part-time help, it's made up of FICA, and so forth. So if you think about it, that total budget that we have of $48 million, if we could scroll down a little bit more, Megan, if you don't mind. So of that $47.9 million, 73% of our budget goes to personnel services. And that's one thing we really try to do when we're putting the budget together, is really hone in on the budget and try to tie that number down the best we can. And generally we have a pretty good idea of it. As a matter of fact, through the October 31st, personnel services is about 1% less than the budget of where we should be at. So that kind of gives you an idea that we're doing pretty good. We estimated very well, or pretty well, I won't say very well at this point. What probably makes up that 1% less than what we anticipated is we've got attrition. We've got open positions. And I think we've talked about that in the past. We've had some issues with EMS. We've had some issues with truck drivers. We still see that in certain areas, but I think it is getting better. But we have had the savings over the first couple months on that. Another item I wanted to point out on the expenditure side is fuel. I think everybody's familiar, whether it's from your business on a personal level. Fuel has gone up considerably in the last, I'd say, 9-10 months. For example, when we put the budget together back in February, the average gallon of gas for unleaded was $1.90. Recently, I just looked the other day on what we're paying, and it's $2.70, and it's been high as $2.90 per gallon back in October. Now, that's what we pay as a county. There's things that's different than what you may see at the pump, because there's some taxes that we don't have to pay along with profits that people, the citizens have to pay when they go to the pump. So you can see it's gone up 42% when we put the budget together. Concern is, do we have enough money to cover the fuel costs, because we've seen an increase of 42% from when we budgeted. Good news is, when we put the budget together, we weren't sure really how much revenue we were going to need, not revenue, but fuel we were going to need to take our C&D landfill debris over to Twin Chimneys over in Greenville. So we didn't have a track record or anything. We tried to do our best estimate. It looks like we've overestimated on that, which is good. And if we continue at the same rate that we're going right now, we should be under budget in the solid waste department's budget for fuel by about $100,000, which, when I look at it in totality for all fuel accounts in the general fund, we should be able to use that $100,000 to offset the increase in the fuel costs that I just talked about for the Sheriff's Department, the Roads and Bridges Department, for the EMS Department, because we didn't anticipate fuel going from $1.90 to $2.90 back in February. I don't think too many people anticipated that. So on the good side, we feel comfortable with fuel. I think that's been a talk over the last couple months on a national level, but I just want to let council know, for us, I think because of solid waste and the savings we're going to have from what we anticipated for fuel out there, that we'll be okay. Another item we wanted to talk about is temporary staff. I think we talked about this during the budget process. About the plan was for us to be able to use prisoners again. For a while we were not using prisoners because of COVID, and the plan was, and what we understood was, July 1st we'd be able to have those prisoners back. Well, unfortunately, those prisoners are not coming back, or they did not come back July 1st. And from what I can tell, for the foreseeable future, they're not going to come back. So we've had to use, to keep the same level of service that we've been giving to the citizens, we've been having to contract out with a temporary staffing agency to keep our solid waste going, to keep our building maintenance going, to keep Mile Creek going, and various other departments. So when I look at what we've spent, where we've had to grab from other accounts that really was needed, like building maintenance is a good example, they're having to take money from repairs to buildings and grounds to cover those costs. But when I look at what we've spent so far and what we anticipate spending through the end of June, we're going to need about $380,000 added to the budget to continue our same level of service. And that's one of the things when you look at the revenues and the Register of Deeds fees are doing better than we anticipated. I feel comfortable that we can take the money from the additional revenue that we get from that and use it to offset these costs that we're going to have. So overall, when you look at the revenues and you look at the expenditures and the unforeseen expenditures, I think overall at this point we're going to be fine in the general fund. I do want to point out, because I've talked about it before, council's talked about it before, but if you look on the bottom of the page over to the right, FY21, down at the very bottom, if we can scroll down a little bit more, our fund balance was $40.5 million, which I just want to say that's a very healthy fund balance. We've talked to council over the years about that. And if you scroll back over to the left, and I apologize for the scrolling, at the end of this year, we're projected to have, if everything goes according to what I just talked about and what we have in the budget, we should have a fund balance of about $39.2 million. And that's primarily because, with our capital, we have millage set aside to help pay for the capital, but it's not enough to pay for all of our capital. So we're having to dip into fund balance. But my point being is we do have a healthy fund balance. We're on good financial grounds for our general fund. And if you look at it as a percentage of our expenditures, our total fund balance of approximately $40 million to our expenditures of $48 million, that's about 85% of expenditures. I think a lot of agencies would love to have that, and generally they only have about 2 months of reserves on hand to cover their expenditures. So I just kind of want to point out we're in very good financial shape, in my opinion. I've been doing this for about 30 years, and I just want to let y'all know that with y'all's conservative budget and the way y'all do things, we're on track to have a break-even year for this year. And I didn't know if council had any questions or anything that I could answer for them.
Any questions for Mr. Garino?
What about inflation? How much is that affecting it?
Well, I mean, right now, we're being able to withstand it, except for fuel. Luckily, we over budgeted because we didn't know what we're going to do at the C&D landfill for transferring. So fuel, I feel comfortable with that. A lot of the other stuff, we're kind of holding the line for departments. We make them do budget adjustments, and if we know something that's going to be over budget right now, we ask them to find money in their budget to cover those costs. They may have to do away with something they had planned on doing to cover those costs. But right now, we don't know what inflation is going to do really. Personnel services, as I mentioned before, is 73% of our budget. We can lock that number in pretty well. Health insurance is part of it. We just had open enrollment. We'll see what insurance change come January to get a better idea on that. But I don't think that's going to move the needle if people change their insurance from maybe, say, family coverage to no coverage, or vice versa, where they had no coverage and now they want family coverage. So for right now, I think we're doing okay with inflation. Fuel's the biggest thing that I foresee affecting the budget.
Mr. Roper.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is kind of a unique situation. I don't ever get to ask questions. So I'm going to ask Mr. Garino just because I have a point to this question.
Okay.
About capital purchases, what are we seeing? You and I have discussed this. What are we seeing with expenses for capital purchases that we're out there making this year from the CIP?
Yeah, we're actually making purchases. We either use a cooperative agreement that's out there with Sourcewell. We use a state contract that's out there. And then we also do our own bidding. We're having the same issues as anybody else is having, whether in business or in their personal life looking for cars because of the chip demand. We still have to buy cars from dealerships. But we're working with them. They're finding whether it's an SUV for the sheriff's department or for truck for the enforcement officers that came about. We got those two trucks. We're able to find them. One thing I would note is on your heavy equipment, mainly in your solid waste area where we're buying, tractor trailers, things like that. We're seeing issues with that, with the costs going up. And I'll give you an example on that. We have in the budget a wheel loader. I'm not going to really tell you what a wheel loader is because I really don't know, but I know it's a big piece of equipment. When we put the budget together in January, the vehicle maintenance superintendent, he got a quote for what the specs were, so we could have an estimate of what to put in the budget. At the time in January, he put a quote in, or requested $161,000 for the wheel loader. This past September, we bid this out on our website, sent it out. I think we had like 7 bids come in. So late September, the bids came in, we opened them up. The lowest bid was $219,000, which is a 36% increase from when we got the quote in January. And that's really tied to steel. I think everybody understands steel's going up, and it keeps going up. But that's one of the parts of the inflation that Mr. Feimster talked about. Right now, we have that on hold until we can come up with a plan to address with council on what we want to do for that wheel loader.
Chairman, I appreciate Mr. Green. He knew exactly what I was referencing, because that's the biggest example that we have thus far, is how does council wish us to approach that? You voted in the budget for that to be in the capital improvement plan and for us to get it, because it's a need, not a want. And so we need to move forward with that purchase, but we anticipate seeing more of this over the next few months, where we'll try to buy something and it'll be above what was estimated because of inflation. What I would propose to you all, but this is certainly your decision to make, is that we inform you when that circumstance happens, and and give you an opportunity to weigh in, but we move forward with the vote, with the purchase that you voted for us to make, and then we address that in the budget amendment come the spring. But I certainly want to get your guidance on that. That's the reason we've waited on the wheel loader, because it's kind of the biggest example we've got right now.
Councilman Whitehurst.
We have a very healthy reserve by any standard.
Yes.
Okay, so
that's why I want to point
there
out.
should be no issue with taking this out of reserve, and these things don't need to be delayed for any reason. We are not in any kind of, this is, I would almost say, overly healthy reserve.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I want to point that out about our fund balance, because I don't want you to think that we have no money. If something's over budget, we can't do anything. I think I've told council in the past, we have a very healthy fund balance if we need to draw it down for something, particularly one-time items.
It shouldn't be any question with any of these purchases to move forward, because they're not going down.
Right.
And our needs not going away.
I think it's more that it's what's in the budget. We have to go by what's in the budget approved by council. I know departments get frustrated sometimes when I tell them we can't do it because it wasn't approved in the budget. It would be up to the administrator to decide how he'd like to approach it. And I think that's what he's trying to do tonight, is approach it with council on direction.
And I think that you and I have had this conversation, I know this council's had this conversation about the fund balance and the intent of a fund balance, and it's actually for times like these.
Yes.
When you do get a change, and we had a pretty good 4-year run there where we were able to build a fund balance. Mm-hmm. And I agree with Councilman Whitehurst. My understanding is if it's a need, not a want, and we have the fund balance, that is the intent and purpose of the budget amendment in the spring. Now, as far as you other gentlemen, that's just my opinion. Whether we need formal notification prior to that budget amendment in the spring, that's something that I really don't know the answer to.
Mr. Chair.
Pleasure.
I agree with both you guys. The budget's a plan, and we couldn't foresee inflation happening. We couldn't foresee these things happening. The plan is for the services of the people who live here. If we have a need to provide those services for the people who live here, and we've got a healthy fund balance, the plan then just it changes because of how much it's going to cost. But I think as long as we're made aware of what's happening, the administrator should have the ability to make those calls.
Mr. Feimster, Mr. Sadis,
No comment.
Any thought on that at all?
I agree with you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Item number 10 on tonight's agenda. It's going to be consideration of a resolution 2021-25 in support of regional water solutions within Pickens County. You should have a copy of that resolution proposal in front of you. Do I have a motion and a second that constitutes adoption of this resolution?
That motion?
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Feimster. Discussion on this resolution.
This has got a pretty long history, and it's basically looking 50 years out in the future and giving Pickens County the right to have access to its own water. Right now, there's a giant pipe sitting in Lake Kiowa. It's pumping water free of charge to Greenville, who then turns around and sells it back to us, our different water districts. And we went through a very large fight several years ago with Duke Energy and relicensing, and us being tried to be prevented from having access to our water. This is the first step of us being able to put a water plant on Kiowa, bring all of our water districts together, and be able to get water from our own source without going across basin with it. And we need support from people in Columbia on this. And Thomas Alexander, who's some of y'all's representative, his district is mostly in Oconee, but it stretches into ours. Those y'all live in the central Clemson area, see? Yep. He has been leading the charge on this to protect the water rights of Pickens County. You need to put some pressure on Senator Rice to join him. This is a very big deal. It doesn't seem important right now, but 20 years from now, it's a huge deal. And we went through a knockdown, drag out with Greenville Water to have this right, and we can't squander it. So this is the first step in trying to have funding come from Columbia to help us to put in a water plant, which is a multi-million-dollar project, so that we won't be held captive by Greenville County from water from our own county. And that's where this is. Is that the kind of an explanation?
Yes, and we're in an unprecedented time because there's funding that's available through multiple sources at the state level that the state delegation has an opportunity to go and get. I mean, it could in essence fast track this to the point where we're no longer buying back our own water and I'll pass that savings along to the people who live here. So.
And just clarification, the title of the ordinance is urging the South Carolina legislature to provide funding for the Pickens Regional Joint Water System's new water treatment facility on Lake Kiowa. That is the title and the spirit behind this resolution. Any other discussion, comments, questions? Mr. Feimster.
Yes. The Clemson primarily gets their water from a part of the Anderson system. But as Clemson is growing, we're going to have more than what Anderson can provide. And so I feel positive about this because sooner or later we're going to have water from another source. We grew something like 27% in the last 10 years. And if that keeps up, we'll really need that soon.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Saylor.
Well, you can go. No, you go.
Go ahead, Mr. Hendricks.
I wanted to note for council that I had conversations with some of the representatives of the Pickens Regional Joint Water System, and they are very, they're very appreciative of council's support of their quest to build this water plant. As you know, Greenville County has a 60-inch water line coming out of Kiowa, 72-inch water line coming out of Kiowa, going to Greenville County, and they're in the process of building another 60-inch water line coming out of Kiowa. 6 of the 10 largest wholesale customers of Greenville Water System are Pickens County water districts. So water comes out of Kiowa, goes to Greenville, and we are 6 of the 10 largest wholesale customers. That's from their annual report. As you know, the ARPA funding is at the state. Part of the reason for this resolution right now is because the Senate and the House and the South Carolina legislature want to take up where that ARPA money goes. There's over $2 billion is going to be parceled out throughout the state. There's already way more requests than the there's way more requests. This is something specific to Pickens County. Get in touch with Senator Alexander, Senator Rice, and our House members, and ask them to get behind this and support it, and that's what your resolution is for. I will note that the Pickens Regional Joint Water System had in their request for the resolution, some of this language is theirs. They actually requested some funding from this council, and I just wish that the council that was taken out before the resolution would be passed. But be aware that they're also seeking funding.
Thank you. Mr. Saylor.
Oh, yeah. The water plant, I think, is going to be $55 million, and you could use COVID money to pay for it, some of it or all of it. And from state COVID money or county COVID money. I think the state will give them some money, but everyone is asking the state for money, that COVID money. You said the list is this long, the request is this long. And at the county level, the same thing, we can give some county COVID money to that. But again, if you look at our list, it's this long, the requests are that long. They're going to ask us for some of this COVID money. If you look at our COVID money budget, it's not in there. It's not in there. So that's going to crimp our budget, COVID money budget, plus all the cost overruns we're hearing about. The COVID money is going to go faster than we realize. It's just my only warning. Because as more people learn about it, they're going to come forward. And we have to be real careful that we prioritize it and make sure it goes in the right places.
And just for clarification, COVID money is ARPA funding. So those two terms are, Vice Chairman.
Yeah, I spoke with Bonnie Ammons, who's Executive Director of the South Carolina Rural Infrastructure Authority for the state, this past Friday. And she indicated that there's more money that's available rather than just the ARPA funding. I've got that information that I want to present to the Mr. Ponder and the Pickens County Water Authority because they can apply for those grants right away. I believe that there's, like she specifically, I mean, she's for the whole state, and she said, "Where do you live?" I said, "Liberty." She said, "Wow, there's a problem there. We've got to fix that." And so it's on their radar. I think this resolution puts us in a better position. We get the state delegation, to Councilman Whitehurst's point, get them all involved. And I think we've got a good shot at not just the whatever ARPA funding that's available, but there's additional funding in grant form that's available through the state.
Any other discussion on this resolution? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you, gentlemen. Item number 11 on tonight's agenda is consideration of Resolution 2021-26 to adopt a redistricting criteria for Pickens County Council districts based on the 2020 U.S. Census. Do I have a motion and a second of adoption of this resolution?
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Whitehurst. So you'll see before you tonight, item number 11 in the packet is simply a resolution adopting redistricting criteria. It is pretty much goes down the statute, list of requirements per districts, and it's laid out there. I've taken a crash course, and that's about the extent of this. I don't know, you've been through this before, but there are certain criteria when you're redrawing lines and when you're including with the census flow and the ebb. You can and can't do certain things, and the big, bold understand is complying with federal Voting Rights Act law, especially here in South Carolina. So that's pretty much what this resolution is giving direction and instruction on how to move forward with redistricting per the census. Any questions or discussion?
Comment, this is required by the state, this resolution that we're saying we're going to follow this is one of those things that basically just sets up what we're about to do.
This is not technically required that we pass a resolution by the state. It's required that we do these things.
Right, I hadn't seen the resolution part before.
Yeah, so we're doing that because basically what will happen now is the staff will develop a proposed map for you all to consider, because unlike the school district, unlike some other thing, y'all, county council sets county council district lines. So we'll come up with a proposal based on these standards. So it's giving us guidance.
I've actually gotten phone calls, folks wanting to give us recommendations, and I've gotten emails of folks wanting to give us recommendations, and You know, I think we have to comply with the state law, and I understand that there may be good maps to look at to compare with, as long as you're following federal and state laws. But this is an abundance of caution because the checks and balances of the actual map have to fall within these 8. So that's, this resolution actually is abundance of caution.
What is the timeline or the calendar for the council when it comes to redrawing these county lines, county district lines?
So I can speak to that, Mr. Sada, thank you. It will be needed that the lines will be finalized and voted on by the county in advance of the filing periods that'll be opening up for District 1 and District 2 come this spring. So what we would intend to do as a staff is to bring you a proposed map, perhaps for the committee of the whole in January, to give you enough time to look at it and study it.
Okay.
And that's actually in the state law. Any other questions on this resolution? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you, gentlemen. Item 12 on tonight's agenda is Meals on Wheels funding. This item, you do not have a document in front of you, but I'm sure I can get clarification as needed. I've had brief discussion, I know with Councilman Whitehurst. This is a unique one of all the ARPA funding requests that we've received, in the fact that the request is for money to repay a debt that's owed to the county. We have attempted to have this conversation a couple different times without success. So I chose this format and this opportunity. I do feel like this is different than every other ARPA request that we've received, purely because of the fact this money is literally money that can be spent twice. And by saying that, for clarification, it's money that would go to Meals on Wheels to repay a debt, and then once that debt is repaid, we can turn around and respend that money again. So it's actually 2 bangs for the buck of ARPA funding. I don't know of any other request we've seen that falls within that category. So I do feel like it stands alone and it stands separate for that reason. I also can't think of another organization that has supported the residents of Pickens County like Meals on Wheels has during the COVID time. I do also know that in the committee of the whole, we talked about setting out a policy, or having staff work on a policy for adopting, and we voted on that out of the committee tonight. Again, I feel like this is different than any other ARPA request that we have seen or will see. I can't think of another situation where we'll run into something like this. Vice Chairman Costner, I know you had a question.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I agree this is a unique situation in that the Meals on Wheels actually owes the money to the county. So by giving the money to them, they then give it back and we can allocate it where we want to. So it is where we can, in essence, help out 2 different things. But more importantly than that, Meals on Wheels did some extraordinary things during COVID. I mean, it's one of the organizations one of the few organizations, we talked about taking care of our at-risk population, and that was a big thing that we started right as soon as this happened. We didn't go, let's do masks, let's do this. Nope, let's focus on our at-risk population. And our biggest partner was Meals on Wheels, and they stepped up to the plate to serve those meals and take care of those people. So for multiple reasons is why I would support this.
Mr. Feenstra.
I know this is bragging, but I actually helped distribute some of the food up until COVID really became prevalent.
And again, I really feel like this is a different scenario, and I'm up for somebody to convince me otherwise, purely because it's an opportunity. You literally will have the opportunity to spend the money twice based on the request that's out there, which is why I just feel like it is such a different scenario than any other ARPA funding. If you get down to the spirit of the ARPA funding, just like the Water Authority is going to the state for money, it is laid out there for the counties to support organizations that really filled a void, to what Vice Chairman Costner was saying, or stepped up. It is their avenue to get funding, is to request it from us. This is one organization that I don't think there's any question that they did that, or that they filled a gap or a void in serving that population. Also feel like they were affected by COVID, and You can't deny that either. But again, the basis of my urgency, if you will, is purely to Councilman Seta's point before the money is all spent, because it will get gone. This is all money that can be respent another time. Councilman Whitehurst.
I worked on the last council when we gave the building to those guys, and money to do stuff, and they do a admirable job of serving the public. My struggle with this is it's always been my struggle with government is as we go through and try to pick who we're going to help and who we're not going to help, and everyone's always got something that they do, whether it be the animals or the older people or the children or something. And I struggle with this because we set up a policy that I didn't vote for, because I feel like we need to take care of what we have first. Then we can address the other issues out there. But we had set a policy up and how to address this. And I feel like that if we need to let everyone follow that policy, doesn't mean it's not a worthy thing that should not be funded for. I'm not saying I wouldn't vote for it compared to everything else out there. I thought really hard, I was struggling with this, how we give the money and get the money back. And I couldn't, and I'm sitting there, something in my economic brain and my balance sheet doesn't work on that. And it's an asset.
You're losing an asset.
We're losing an asset. We have an income. We basically gave them a low interest loan to help them out, okay? And so they could borrow that money from us and they will pay that money back. And so when we take that money and then give it to them, pay it back then there's that loss of an asset. And that's but that's really not the whole point. We're not talking about a lot of, we're not talking millions of dollars here. It's not a huge amount of money, and it's not a huge asset we would lose. My struggle is if we're going to go and say we're going to take money and spend it on particular groups, that we look at all the groups under one umbrella at the same time and say, okay, if we're going to have to make a decision on who's going to win, who's going to lose, at least we can look at all the players at once. I feel like we're taking exception when we take somebody and make a set of rules and then go, okay, but we have, and I understand there's a lot of emotion around this one, which to me strikes me as strange why there should be, but that we don't address it as this everybody else. At least be fair across the board and address all the groups that would like to have something spent on them. And that's my struggle that I'm having with it.
And I understand that. I really do. And I've thought about that. This one doesn't fit with any other request at all, in my opinion. And that's my opinion. And it's true what you said. You do lose an asset, but you also lose a liability. And I mean, we
don't have a liability.
You do have a liability when you own a building. I mean, when you hold the mortgage on the building, it's technically your building, right? That's how it's your asset.
But we don't own the mortgage on it. I'm not misunderstanding. We gave them a loan.
Yeah, but the mortgage is an asset. It's not a liability.
It is an asset, but it's also a liability.
You're not going to create money. You think you're creating $100,000. Only the Federal Reserve Bank can create money, not the Pickens County Council. What happens is you're going to give them $100,000, so you're going to lose that. And then you're going to lose an asset on your books too. That's $200,000. So it's going to all come out in the wash. I mean, you're not gaining $100,000. You're not spending this money magically twice like the Federal Reserve would do. It just makes no sense.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I thought you were done. I apologize, sir.
No, there's nothing unique about it. And financially, there's nothing unique. It's just there's a shell game because you're paying them and they're paying you, but you're losing $200,000 because you're paying $100,000, and you're also losing an asset which you're not going to have in the future, which you could spend, but you can't anymore. Okay.
Vice Chairman.
So I think it is financially unique. I don't like the idea of the government making money off of owning a mortgage on a 501c3 that serves the community. That is very unique. I don't know any other 501c3s that we own their mortgage and they're paying interest, so we're generating revenue off of a 501c3. I think, that goes back to, I don't know why it was created before, and I know I wasn't here, so I didn't have a voice in that. it is a shell game, so to speak, but it gives them the opportunity to move forward with their fundraising without having to worry about paying the county interest money back. It gives us an opportunity to get that money and spend it on radios or whatever we need to spend it on. So it isn't spending the money twice, but in essence, it's us taking advantage of the ARPA rules so that we can use that money for maybe something we didn't necessarily could have used for ARPA.
Mr. Fenster.
As a senior citizen, I know that there are a lot of people in Pickens County who are not as well off as I am. I have a sister-in-law who is almost blind. Her husband just died. And so if it wasn't for me and my wife, she would be on Meals on Wheels. And there are a lot of other people in that situation, and they're going to be, over the years, even more people. And so it's important that we take care of those people. We don't want anybody starving in Pickens County.
Councilman Waters.
Just to address your point, Mr. Costner.
Yes.
We didn't put this burden on them.
No, I mean
they were.
They wanted to be able to do it. I mean, I guess.
Yeah, it's a matter of they were looking for a way to get a low interest loan and they couldn't get it, and we basically said, okay, what we'll do, which we don't normally do. You're right. It was a favor on the county's part to do it and say, listen, we'll, like we did with the fire trucks. A lot of times with these people, we'll hold the mortgage on that to give them a better rate because we had the funds available. So it wasn't like we were taking advantage of anybody.
No, I didn't mean to imply that at all. I get the point of what you're saying.
It's a favor, but that's not even the point of it. My point is just having everyone at the table to look at it across the spectrum. And yes, there are unique situations, but then that comes out when we look at everybody. But they're being taken out of the group because they're unique, rather than saying, let's compare it, and that becomes, as you guys do with the extra 5% discount on someone that bids something from the county. We still get bids from everybody, but we look at that point, you know, and that's my point. I feel like it's a matter of looking at everything at once if we're going to do that. And that's just me. It's nothing against Meals on Wheels. I think they're a fantastic program and done a fantastic job of what they've been doing. And you've turned that whole thing around from what it was before that building came on board. And what y'all did to change that has been tremendous.
Mr. Chairman, I want to just explain the reasons why I'm voting now.
Mr. Senator.
You know, I always start with the bigger picture, which is our task. I do simple things like I go to the recycle center, I see that we're not taking tires, we're not taking brush, where plastics are not being recycled, they're just being thrown in the landfill. You know, they need money. These departments are in dire need of money to solve these problems. And I think Meals on Wheels is a great organization, don't get me wrong. But we have to spend the money we have first and foremost on our primary responsibilities. And I think we're neglecting some of these. Like I said, I think we've got 6 children and we're not feeding and clothing them the way we should, and we're giving the money to somebody down the block. The second thing is we have $24 million in COVID requests from our department heads. Oh, no, I'm sorry, we have $24 million in COVID money. We have $69 million in requests. We pay these department heads to do a job. We're supposed to fund them. They're in need, and we're telling them no. But that we're singling out Meals on Wheels to pay off their loan. I just don't feel good about that. The other thing is we talked about cost overruns. We got a lot of multi-million dollar projects ahead of us. There's going to be cost overruns. We don't know what they're going to be. Ralph talked about it, Ken. You know, we should pay for that stuff first, those projects first, make sure we cover those cost overruns, then move to these outside groups, which there's many. There's many, and they're all doing good things. And I'll be honest with you, and this is going to ruffle some feathers. Our county attorney was a vice chairman at Meals on Wheels. Henry was a board member. He was a county officer. I just don't feel comfortable with former members, really with those close ties, you know, singling this organization out to give them money. I don't. If I was on the Taxpayers Association, if we were giving them $5,000 to county government, I'd be against that too. I just don't feel comfortable with it. We've given a lot to Meals on Wheels. We gave them the building. The councilman at the time gave him $25,000 of his rec money for the HVAC. The loan, as I understood it, and I read the document, was that they were trying to get a loan from the bank. They couldn't get favorable terms. They came to the county. The county gave them a sweetheart deal on the loan. They signed on the dotted line, pledging to pay that loan. I think the county has been good to Meals on Wheels. They should stand up and pay the loan that they signed on to. And then finally, I was trying to look for some hardship in Meals on Wheels. And every 501c3 has to file a tax return. And you can go to the IRS website and look at it. And you can look at cash positions and assets. And I looked at the last form that was on there. And Meals on Wheels, on their last tax return, showed cash in the bank of $254,000. Assets of $1.5 million. Now, I don't see that as a hardship situation. If they wanted to pay the loan off, they could pay it off themselves. If they want to show me a statement of last month that shows a negative cash balance or depleting assets and they're in a hardship, I'll look at it. But I didn't see that in that financial return. So for those 6 reasons, I'm voting no.
Any other discussion or question? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote on funding to Meals on Wheels. I guess I need a
paying off their loan is what
pay off their loan, their mortgage to the county. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Opposed? Thank you, gentlemen. Item 13 on tonight's agenda is consideration of a resolution 2021-27 certifying property located at 212 Rice Road in Easley as a textile mill site pursuant to the South Carolina. Am I off one?
Skipped one.
I'm off one. I apologize, gentlemen. First reading in title only. I actually made a note to keep from messing this up, and I did just that. First reading in title only of an ordinance to the Code of the County of Pickens to certify the vacant textile building located at 225 Ruhamer Road in Liberty as a textile mill site under the South Carolina Textiles Communities Revitalization Act. Do I hear a motion and a second?
Yeah, I'll motion to find out what's going on.
Second.
Second.
Motion by Vice Chairman Costner, second by Councilman Feimster. If I'm not mistaken, this is the same thing that we've done time and time again regarding the definition of a textile mill site. Mr. Roper, if you have clarification.
And I'm surrounded by lawyers who know more about this than me, so I probably should just sit down. If I get this wrong, y'all throw something at me. But this is actually the classic situation. The rug mill in Liberty up on the hill.
It used to be
Mohawk.
Mohawk, yeah.
Years ago. This literally is a textile mill that is now shuttered, that a company is, I guess, in the process of closing on, that are going to put a business back in it. And so it's the classic situation of something that was clearly a textile mill now being replaced by, job creating it's a plastics, industrial plastics recycler that's going in there. Don't get excited. I asked the same question, Mr. Chairman. I asked the same question. We'll work on that. But so this is more the classic, straightforward circumstance in the past. It's a textile mill being repurposed for other use.
So this just gives them a tax break with the state, not with the county.
That's right.
Any questions or discussion?
I have a question.
Mr. Saylor.
Okay, when I read that law, when we give them this certification, they can ask for either a state income tax credit or a local property tax credit. Is that true? Are you attorney? Who's the attorney here?
We have an attorney right here.
Okay. Is that the guy that's going to answer our questions?
What?
Oh, well, either of you can answer it. I thought that's what he was here for.
No, he's here for later.
Oh, okay. Okay, so I'll ask
He probably
you.
knows about it, though.
I'll ask you. So they have a choice, right? Okay.
But they have to declare what their choice is.
Have they declared what their choice is?
This is for a income tax credit on the amount of money that they spend on their construction.
Okay, so they have to declare that.
That in fact property tax.
Okay. All right, that's reasonable. The next one I'm not going to like, and I'll explain it why when we do it.
Any other discussion or question? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Opposed? As Mr. Seda pointed out, Mr. Rhodes is actually here for the next 3 items on the agenda. I would like to make a motion that we go to executive session for legal advice on items 14 through 16 with Mr. Rhodes tonight. Can I get a second on that motion?
Second.
All right. Any discussion about that? All right.
Why are we going to executive session?
Legal advice
From our attorney?
from our attorney.
Okay.
All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. We'll take a brief executive session to go discuss items 14, 15, and 16 on tonight's agenda.
Does that affect 17?
Do you not want to, well, I'll do whatever you want to do.
Oh.